The universe has a way of humbling those who think themselves invincible. In the depths of space, where starlight takes millennia to reach its destination, pride becomes the most dangerous weapon of all. Captain Dominic Harwell stood before the panoramic viewport of the UESS Valiant, watching the swirling nebula of Sector 7 paint the darkness in shades of violet and gold. His weathered hands clasped behind his back, a habit from 20 years of naval service. The Valiant was humanity's third deep space exploration vessel, sleeker and more advanced than her predecessors, equipped with the revolutionary Nexus drive that bent the fabric of reality itself. Beside him, Science Officer Rebecca Torres adjusted her neural interface, her dark eyes reflecting the streaming data only she could see. She had been with the Valiant since its maiden voyage, a brilliant astrophysicist who had helped design the very systems that powered their journey through the cosmos. In the engineering bay 3 decks below, Chief Engineer Hassan Okoy monitored the Nexus drive's quantum harmonics. His team had nicknamed him the Magician for his uncanny ability to coax performance from systems that should have been impossible. The drive hummed with contained energy, a miniature universe folded into a space no larger than a cargo container. The tranquility shattered when Lieutenant Dakota Pierce's voice cracked through the bridge speakers. Captain, multiple contacts emerging from subspace. Distance, 40,000 kilometers enclosing. Configuration unknown. Dominic's jaw tightened. They were 3 months from the nearest human outpost, exploring a region that was supposed to be uninhabited. All stations, condition yellow. Tactical assessment, Pierce. The tactical station lit up with hostile red markers. Dakota's fingers danced across holographic controls, her training as a former fighter pilot evident in every precise movement. 17 vessels, Captain. Mass readings suggest heavy cruiser class. Their energy signatures are off the charts, some kind of plasma-based propulsion I've never seen before. Rebecca moved to her station, pulling up sensor data. Captain, their whole composition is crystalline in nature, possibly silicon-based. Temperature readings suggest they operate in environments that would vaporize conventional metals. These aren't like any species in our database. The alien fleet arranged itself in a formation that spoke of military discipline and hostile intent. Dominic had seen enough combat formations during the resource wars to recognize aggression when it faced him. Open all channels, standard first contact protocols. Let them know we're here peacefully. Communications Officer Timothy Chun, youngest member of the bridge crew, but possessing a gift for linguistics, activated the universal translator. Channel open, Captain. Transmitting friendship codes on all known frequencies. The response came swiftly, a voice that sounded like grinding glass mixed with digital static. Primitive vessel, you have violated the sovereign space of the Krell Imperium. Your technology will be catalogued, your crew processed. Resistance is inadvisable. Dominic exchanged glances with Rebecca. The arrogance in that voice was palpable, the certainty of a species that had never encountered equals. This is Captain Dominic Harwell of the United Earthship Valiant. We were unaware this region was claimed. We mean no hostility and request permission to withdraw peacefully. Silence filled the bridge for 3 heartbeats. Then the alien voice returned, colder than before. Your vessel emits energy readings inconsistent with known technology tiers. You will submit to immediate boarding and inspection. Compliance is mandatory. Hassan's voice crackled through the internal cum from engineering. Captain, they're trying to breach our systems. Cyber intrusion attempts on multiple levels. Their coding is sophisticated, but our quantum encryption is holding. Dakota's hands hovered over the weapons console. Captain, they're powering weapons. Plasma cannons charging across their entire fleet. Dominic made his decision. They had come to the stars as explorers, but humanity had learned long ago that peace required the ability to defend it. Shields to maximum. Hassan, bring the Nexus drive to combat readiness. Torres, prepare a full spectrum scan of their vessels. If they want to see what we're capable of, let's give them a demonstration. Rebecca's fingers flew across her console. Initiating deep penetration scan. Captain, you should know that if we reveal the full capabilities of the Nexus drive, we might be showing them technology they can't comprehend. That's exactly the point, Dominic replied quietly. Sometimes the best way to avoid a fight is to make the other side realize they can't win one. The Valiant's sensors reached out. Invisible fingers of quantum energy that could see through walls, pierce shields, and analyze matter at the subatomic level. It was technology born from humanity's relentless pursuit of understanding. From centuries of scientific advancement, compressed into decades of desperate innovation, docked in the Krell flagship, alarms began screaming. Their sensors detected the scan, tried to analyze it, and found themselves looking at something that contradicted everything they knew about physics. The scan wasn't just passive observation. It was active manipulation of quantum states, touching their ships at levels they couldn't protect against. Captain, Rebecca's voice held a note of wonder mixed with concern. Their ships are based on plasma containment technology, very advanced, but their power generation is fusion-based. Compared to our Nexus drive, they're operating at maybe 15% efficiency. And Captain, their weapons, they're designed to overwhelm shields through sustained bombardment. Against conventional defenses, they'd be devastating. Dakota understood the implication immediately. But our quantum shields don't operate on conventional principles. Their weapons would be almost useless. Timothy's board lit up with frantic alien transmissions. Captain, they're detecting our scan. Multiple channels lighting up with what the translator identifies as alarm and confusion. Dominic watched the alien fleet's formation begin to waver. He could almost sense their uncertainty, the moment when predators realized they might have cornered something more dangerous than themselves. Open a channel, Timothy. Let's try this again. Channel open, sir. Dominic's voice carried the weight of command, but also the patience of a teacher addressing students who didn't yet understand the lesson. Krell Imperium, you have scanned our vessel and found it beyond your understanding. We have scanned yours and found it transparent to our technology. This does not make us enemies. We have no interest in your territory or your resources. We seek only knowledge and peaceful contact. But understand this clearly. We will defend ourselves if forced to do so, and you have now seen that we possess the capability. The silence that followed felt different. Not the silence of contempt, but of calculation and reassessment. Hassan's voice came through again. Captain, their cyber attacks have stopped. They're pulling back their intrusion attempts. Maintain yellow alert, Dominic ordered. But hold fire unless fired upon. We came here to make friends, not enemies. Let's see if they're smart enough to recognize the difference. Rebecca moved beside him, her voice low. You know this changes everything, don't you? First contact with a hostile species that we had to intimidate into negotiation. The diplomats are going to have a field day with this. Dominic smiled grimly. Better than the alternative. At least this way, both sides walk away with their ships intact and a healthy respect for each other's capabilities. The alien response finally came, the grinding glass voice noticeably less certain. Valiant vessel, your technology presents variables we did not anticipate. The Krell Imperium does not engage in conflicts with uncertain outcomes. You will be permitted to withdraw. However, this sector remains Krell space. Understood, Dominic replied. We will note this in our charts and ensure future human vessels respect your boundaries. Perhaps in time, we might establish formal diplomatic relations. A pause, and something that might have been curiosity in the alien voice. Your species, human, where did you acquire technology that surpasses Krell engineering? Dominic considered his answer carefully. We built it ourselves, through centuries of scientific pursuit and the driving need to reach beyond our own world. We're newcomers to the galactic community, but we've learned that survival requires innovation. As the Valiant began to turn away, its Nexus drive powering up for a jump to safe distance, Dominic caught Rebecca's thoughtful expression. "What is it, Torres?" "I'm thinking about what just happened," she said softly. "We came out here expecting to find wonders and make peaceful contact. Instead, we found hostility and had to prove ourselves through strength. It makes me wonder what else is waiting out there in the dark." Dominic placed a hand on her shoulder. "Whatever it is, we'll face it the same way we face this, with courage, intelligence, and the determination that has carried humanity from the caves to the stars. The universe is bigger than we imagined, Rebecca, and more complicated. But that's why we're here, to navigate those complications and build bridges where we can." As the stars stretched and bent around them, the Valiant leapt into the safety of faster-than-light travel, leaving behind a Krell fleet that would spend months analyzing what had just occurred. In the vastness of space, humanity had announced its presence, not with weapons or threats, but with the quiet confidence of a species that had earned its place among the stars. Through relentless innovation and unshakable resolve, the journey was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. The Krell Imperium had ruled the Vortian sector for 3,000 cycles. Their dominance built on technological superiority and the absolute certainty that no species could challenge their supremacy. That certainty died the moment the human vessel disappeared into a quantum tunnel that defied every principle of Krell physics. High Arbiter Quellen sat in the crystalline throne of the Imperial Science Council, his translucent form flickering with agitation. Around him, the greatest minds of the Imperium projected their consciousness into the chamber, their thoughts visible as streams of light in the charged atmosphere. Before them floated holographic recreations of the human ship's scan data, equations that refused to resolve, energy signatures that shouldn't exist. "Explain this." Quellen's voice resonated through the crystal lattice. "Explain how a species we have never encountered possesses technology that renders our most advanced vessels primitive by comparison." Senior researcher Villanth, whose mind had decoded the genetics of 17 species, displayed patterns of what the humans called their Nexus drive. "High Arbiter, their approach to quantum manipulation is fundamentally different from ours. We bend physics through brute force application of energy. They convince physics to bend itself through harmonic resonance at the quantum level. It's elegant, efficient, and completely beyond our current understanding." Another consciousness, military strategist Kravush, pulsed with dark concern. Beyond understanding means beyond replication. If these humans possess one such vessel, they likely possess more. If they possess more, they represent a strategic threat we cannot counter with conventional warfare. Quellen absorbed this information, feeling the weight of leadership press down on his consciousness. The Imperium had expanded across 40 star systems through a simple formula: encounter a species, assess their technology, and either integrate them as vassals or eliminate them as threats. The humans fit neither category. What do we know of their origin? Villanth projected a star chart. Their transmissions referenced Earth, a planet in a region we classified as technological dead zone 700 cycles ago. Simple radio emissions, chemical propulsion, no evidence of faster-than-light capability. We marked them as pre-contact and moved on. 700 cycles, Kravush repeated. They went from radio to quantum field manipulation in 700 cycles? That's impossible. Most species take 10,000 cycles to achieve what they've accomplished. Quellen felt something he hadn't experienced in millennia: genuine uncertainty. The Imperium had always been the apex predator in known space. Now they had encountered something that might be an equal, or worse, a superior. What did their captain say? That survival requires innovation. Perhaps we've grown complacent, relying on refinements of old technology rather than pursuing new paradigms. You suggest we learn from them? Villain's projection brightened with interest. High Arbiter, making contact with a species after threatening them, is unprecedented. Our entire first contact protocol is based on demonstration of superiority. And that protocol failed, Quellen stated flatly. We demonstrated superiority, and they demonstrated that our superiority was an illusion. We have two choices: view them as enemies to be destroyed or as potential allies to learn from. Given that we cannot guarantee victory in the first scenario, wisdom suggests the second. Meanwhile, aboard the Valiant, Dominic gathered his senior staff in the conference room. The walls displayed a three-dimensional map of their encounter, tracking every movement of the Krell fleet, every communication, every scan result. Hassan spoke first, his engineering mind already racing ahead. Captain, I've been analyzing the data from their ships. Their technology is impressive, genuinely advanced in ways that complement rather than compete with ours. Their plasma containment systems are beautiful, efficient in ways our fusion reactors aren't. If we could combine their approach with our quantum harmonics, the applications would be revolutionary. Rebecca nodded, pulling up comparative analyses. That's what fascinates me. We approached quantum mechanics from a theoretical physics perspective, building mathematics first and engineering second. They clearly approached it from an applied energy perspective, building practical systems and deriving the theory afterward. Two completely different paths to similar destinations. Dakota leaned back in her chair, her tactical mind seeing different implications. With respect to the engineering discussion, we need to address the elephant in the room. We just made first contact with a hostile alien species, intimidated them into backing down, and now they know humans exist and where to find us. Earth needs to know about this immediately. Timothy, who had been quietly reviewing the linguistic patterns in the Krell communications, looked up. There's something else. The way they speak, the structure of their language, it suggests a highly hierarchical society. Very rigid, very ordered. When they're High Arbiter, that's my best translation of their title. When he stopped the attack, every ship responded instantly. No debate, no hesitation. They're not used to uncertainty or ambiguity. Dominic absorbed all of this, feeling the weight of decisions that would ripple across light years and decades. Rebecca, I want you to prepare a comprehensive report on the Krell technology. Hassan, same for their engineering principles. Dakota, threat assessment and defensive recommendations. Timothy, cultural analysis. We're 3 months from home, and I want Earth to have complete information when we arrive. Captain, Rebecca said carefully, there's another consideration. If the Krell are as advanced as they appear, and we're more advanced than them, what does that say about humanity's place in the galactic community? We've only built 3 deep space vessels. We have maybe 50 colonies across 20 light years. We're still practically infants in cosmic terms. But our technology puts us ahead of a species that's been starfaring for millennia. That's going to change everything about how we see ourselves and how others see us. The implications hung in the air like a physical presence. Humanity had ventured into space, expecting to be the newcomers, the students learning from older, wiser civilizations. Instead, they had discovered that human ingenuity, that relentless drive to question and innovate, had leapfrogged over conventional development paths. Hassan spoke into the silence. My grandmother used to tell me that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. Maybe that's what happened here. Maybe lots of species have the potential for rapid advancement, but circumstances hold them back. The Krell, for all their power, seemed comfortable with their position. They stopped innovating because they didn't need to. Humanity never had that luxury. We've always been one disaster away from extinction, so we never stopped pushing forward. Necessity as the mother of invention. Timothy murmured. "It's a pattern throughout human history. The greatest leaps forward came during our darkest times. The resource wars gave us fusion power. The climate collapse gave us atmospheric engineering. The population crisis gave us sustainable closed-loop ecosystems. Every time we faced extinction, we innovated our way past it." Dominic stood, moving to the viewport where the stars streamed past in their faster-than-light journey. "Which means we need to be very careful about what happens next. If other species learn that humanity advanced so quickly due to constant crisis, they might see us as dangerous, unstable. Or they might see us as a threat that needs to be eliminated before we become too powerful." Dakota's expression turned grim. "Or they might try to recreate those conditions, thinking that crisis-breeding innovation is a universal principle. Imagine species deliberately engineering catastrophes to spur advancement." The thought sent a chill through the room. Rebecca moved beside Dominic at the viewport. "So what do? We can't unhappen this encounter. The Krell know we exist. Word will spread. We're not going to be able to hide our capabilities or our existence anymore." Dominic watched the stars, thinking about the small blue planet 3 months away, where 8 billion humans live their lives, mostly unaware of the cosmic stage they had just stepped onto. "We do what humans have always done. We adapt. We prepare. We reach out with open hands, but keep our defenses strong. We share knowledge, but protect our people. And most importantly, we remember that technology doesn't make us superior to anyone. It just gives us different tools to solve similar problems." Hassan smiled slightly. "You're thinking about trying to establish real diplomatic contact with the Krell, aren't you?" "Why not?" Dominic replied. "We backed them down, yes, but we also offered them a chance to walk away with dignity. That matters. They're processing what happened, same as we are. Maybe, once the shock wears off, curiosity will replace fear. If they're as scientifically minded as their initial scans suggest, they'll want to understand how we achieved what we did." Timothy pulled up the communication logs, highlighting specific phrases. "Actually, Captain, there's evidence you might be right. In their final transmission, after the High Arbiter authorized our departure, there was a secondary channel burst. Brief, heavily encrypted, but my translation algorithms caught fragments. Questions about human mathematics, theoretical frameworks, methodology. Someone in their hierarchy is already thinking beyond the military threat to the scientific opportunity." Rebecca's eyes lit up with the excitement of potential discovery. "If we could establish a genuine exchange of knowledge, imagine what both species could learn. Their plasma dynamics, our quantum harmonics. Their biological engineering, our artificial intelligence systems. The synergies could advance both civilizations by centuries and create dependencies that would make future conflict less likely." Dakota added, her tactical mind seeing the strategic value. Economic interdependence was one of the factors that finally ended the resource wars. Make war too expensive, too counterproductive, and most rational actors will choose peace. Dominic felt a surge of pride in his crew. This was why humanity had reached the stars. Not just the technology, but the wisdom to see beyond immediate threats to long-term possibilities. "All right. When we reach Earth, we're not just reporting first contact with a hostile species. We're proposing a new paradigm for human expansion into space. One based on strength, yes, but also on cooperation, exchange, and mutual benefit." The Valiant continued its journey home, carrying information that would reshape human civilization's understanding of its place in the cosmos. Behind them, 40,000 kilometers and growing, the Krell fleet remained in position, their sensors still trying to make sense of what they had encountered. And in the crystalline chambers of the Imperial Science Council, High Arbiter Quellen made a decision that would echo across the stars. "Send a courier to their home system," he commanded. "Not a warship, a diplomatic vessel. If these humans can teach us to see physics differently, perhaps we can teach them about the complex politics of established galactic civilizations. Both forms of knowledge have value. Both could prevent unnecessary conflict. In the vastness of space, two species that had nearly gone to war were instead taking tentative steps toward understanding. The universe, vast and full of wonders, had just become a little bit smaller. And infinitely more interesting. 3 months can feel like an eternity when you're carrying the weight of humanity's future on your shoulders. Dominic spent those months preparing reports, reviewing data, and thinking about the conversation he would need to have with Earth's leadership. But more than that, he thought about what it meant to be human in a universe suddenly more crowded and complex than anyone had imagined. The Valiant emerged from quantum space at the edge of the Sol system, and within hours, every communication channel was flooded with messages. Earth had been waiting, watching their tracking beacon, counting down the days until their explorers returned home. What they didn't know was that their explorers were returning with news that would change everything. Rebecca stood beside Dominic on the bridge as Earth grew larger in the viewport. That beautiful blue marble that had given birth to a species crazy enough to reach for the stars. "Are you ready for this?" she asked quietly. "No," Dominic admitted with a slight smile. "But I don't think anyone could be ready for this. We're about to tell humanity that we're not alone, that we're technologically superior to at least one alien species, and that we might have just started a relationship that could define the next 1,000 years of human history. There's no training manual for that." Hassan joined them, wiping his hands on a cloth, even though there was no grease in the pristine engineering bay. Old habits died hard. "I've been thinking about something. When we met the Krell, we had every advantage. Better technology, better understanding of quantum physics, better strategic position. But we didn't use those advantages to dominate them. We used them to create space for dialogue. That says something important about who we are as a species." Timothy nodded from his station. Every first contact story humanity ever told prepared us for being the weaker party, the ones who had to prove ourselves worthy to advanced aliens. But when we turned out to be the advanced ones, we still chose respect over dominance. That's the story I think Earth needs to hear. Not that we're powerful, but that we're wise enough to use power responsibly. Dakota had been running final system checks, but she looked up at that. The military strategists won't see it that way. They'll see a potential threat that we intimidated but didn't eliminate. They'll want to know why we didn't press our advantage, why we let them leave with knowledge of our capabilities. "Because peace isn't built on fear," Dominic said firmly. "It's built on mutual respect and understanding. Yes, we showed them our strength, but we also showed them our restraint. That's the foundation for something lasting." The Valiant docked at Orbital Station Prime, and within the hour, Dominic found himself in a conference room facing representatives from every nation on Earth. Military leaders, scientists, diplomats, and politicians. The room fell silent as he stood to speak, and for a moment, he felt the enormity of what was about to happen. 3 months ago, he began, the Valiant made first contact with an alien species called the Krell Imperium. It did not go as we had hoped. They were hostile, demanding, and threatened military action. We were forced to demonstrate our capabilities to avoid conflict. And in doing so, we learned something profound about humanity's place in the universe. He pulled up the holographic data, showing the Krell ships, their technology, their power readings. The Krell have been a spacefaring civilization for over 3,000 years. They control 40 star systems. By any conventional measure, they should have been far more advanced than us. But they weren't. Our quantum technology, born from decades of desperate innovation and relentless scientific pursuit, surpasses theirs in fundamental ways. A murmur ran through the assembled crowd. Admiral Patricia Blackwood, head of Earth Space Defense Initiative, leaned forward. You're saying we're more advanced than a species that's been exploring space since before we built the pyramids? In certain key areas, yes, Rebecca interjected, standing to display the comparative analysis. But here's what's crucial to understand. We're not more advanced because we're inherently superior. We're more advanced because we had to be. Human history is a story of survival through innovation. Every crisis we faced forced us to think differently, to question assumptions, to push boundaries. The Krell, for all their power, haven't faced that kind of pressure in millennia. They became comfortable with their supremacy. Hassan added his perspective. Their technology is beautiful and sophisticated, but it's refinement, not revolution. They perfected plasma containment over centuries. We cracked quantum field manipulation in 15 years because we needed faster-than-light travel to establish viable colonies. Different pressures create different innovations. A diplomat from the Asian coalition raised her hand. What are the immediate security implications? If this Krell Imperium knows we exist and where to find us, are we at risk? Dakota stepped forward, her tactical briefing crisp and clear. Short-term risk is minimal. We demonstrated capabilities that would make a direct military confrontation extremely costly for them. Long-term, the situation is more complex. We know from their communications that they're debating how to respond to us. Some factions advocate isolation, some advocate diplomacy, and some likely advocate for military action despite the risks. Which is why, Dominic continued, we need to be proactive. We need to reach out to the Krell, not from a position of fear, but from a position of strength tempered by wisdom. We should propose a formal exchange of knowledge, cultural ambassadors, scientific cooperation. We should show them that humanity's advancement isn't a threat to them, but an opportunity for mutual benefit. The room erupted in debate. Some voices called for military buildup, others for isolation, still others for aggressive expansion, before other species could challenge humanity's technological edge. Dominic let them argue, understanding that this was democracy in action. Messy and chaotic, but ultimately wise. Finally, Dr. Amara Osei, the Secretary General of the United Earth Government, raised her hand for silence. Captain Harwell, you spent days with this species studying them, communicating with them. What's your personal assessment? Not as a military officer, but as a human being who looked into the unknown and saw other conscious minds looking back. What should we do? Dominic took a breath, thinking about Quellen's final transmission, about the curiosity hidden beneath the Krell's rigid hierarchy, about the potential for understanding between species separated by biology, but united by consciousness and the desire to understand the universe. Madam Secretary, I believe we should do what humanity does best. We should reach out. We should be honest about our capabilities, but generous with our knowledge. We should build bridges instead of walls. Not because it's easy or safe, but because it's right. He paused, looking around the room at the faces representing all of humanity. We spent centuries dreaming about finding other intelligent life in the universe. We imagined what we would say, how we would act, what kind of species we would want to be when that moment came. Well, that moment is here, and I believe we should be the species that chooses understanding over fear, cooperation over isolation, and hope over cynicism, even if it's risky. Admiral Blackwood asked, even if sharing our technology could eventually create competitors or enemies. Especially then, Rebecca answered, because the alternative is to become exactly what we feared when we first reached for the stars. A species that hoards knowledge, that sees others as threats rather than potential friends, that lets fear dictate our choices. We didn't survive climate collapse, resource wars, and near extinction just to become paranoid and isolated among the stars. Timothy added softly, besides, Knowledge shared is knowledge multiplied. If we teach the Krell about quantum harmonics, and they teach us about plasma dynamics, both species advance. If we compete instead of cooperate, both species stagnate. History has shown us time and again that open societies with free exchange of ideas advance faster than closed ones. Hassan smiled, his engineer's mind seeing the beautiful simplicity of it. It's like the Nexus drive itself. You can't create a stable quantum field through force alone. You need harmony, balance, multiple elements working together. Maybe that's true for civilizations too. The debate continued for hours, but slowly, a consensus emerged. Humanity would reach out to the Krell Imperium with an offer of formal diplomatic relations and scientific exchange. The Valiant would be refitted as Earth's first dedicated diplomatic vessel, and Dominic's crew, already experienced with the Krell, would lead the mission. Military preparedness would be increased, but not as a prelude to war, rather as insurance that humanity could defend itself while pursuing peace. Weeks later, as the Valiant prepared for its return journey to Krell space, Dominic stood once more at the viewport, watching Earth recede. His crew was with him, along with a delegation of scientists, diplomats, and cultural ambassadors. In the cargo holds were gifts representing human achievement in art, music, literature, and science. Not weapons, but offerings of shared beauty and knowledge. Rebecca stood beside him, her excitement barely contained. You know what I find most amazing about all of this? A few months ago, we were alone in the universe. Now we're preparing to build relationships with species we didn't know existed. And the thing that made it possible wasn't our technology. It was our choice to be kind even when we were powerful. That's the lesson I hope we never forget, Dominic replied. Power without wisdom is just destruction waiting to happen. But power combined with compassion, with curiosity, with the genuine desire to understand and cooperate, that's something that can change the universe. Hassan checked his engineering displays. The Nexus drive humming with contained potential. Course laid in, Captain. Ready to make history again. Dakota smiled from her station. All systems green. Defensive capabilities at full readiness, but weapon systems cold. We're going in peace, but we're not going in stupid. Timothy's board lit up with final clearances from Earth Control. We're cleared for departure, Captain. Oh, and we're getting a transmission from the Krell. Audio only. But the encryption suggests it's from High Arbiter Quellen himself. Put it through, Dominic ordered. The now familiar grinding glass voice filled the bridge. But there was a warmth to it that hadn't been there before. Captain Harwell, the Krell Imperium has received word of your vessel's return. We have prepared a delegation to meet with yours. There is much we wish to learn from your species, and perhaps much we can teach in return. The path forward is uncertain, but we are willing to walk it together. Dominic smiled, feeling the weight of those 3 months of worry lift from his shoulders. High Arbiter Quellen, humanity looks forward to this meeting. We come not as conquerors or supplicants, but as fellow travelers through the cosmos, eager to share what we've learned and learn what you can teach. May this be the first step on a long journey together. As the Valiant leapt into quantum space, racing toward a future no one could predict, but everyone hoped would be bright. Dominic thought about all the choices that had led to this moment. The choice to explore rather than hide. The choice to demonstrate strength without cruelty. The choice to offer friendship even after hostility. The choice to believe that the universe, vast and strange as it was, had room for understanding and cooperation. Behind them, Earth continued its ancient dance around the sun, home to a species that had reached for the stars and found not enemies or masters, but potential friends. Ahead of them, the Krell Imperium prepared to welcome visitors who challenged everything they thought they knew about advancement and power. And between them, the void of space that had once seemed so empty now felt full of possibility. The universe was vast, ancient, and filled with wonders beyond human imagination. But perhaps the greatest wonder of all was this, that conscious minds, born of different stars and shaped by different worlds, could still find common ground in curiosity, in the desire to understand, and in the simple recognition that cooperation was always more valuable than conquest. The journey was far from over. In many ways, it was only beginning. But as the Valiant carried humanity's hopes toward an uncertain future, one thing was certain. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them not alone, but with friends found among the stars. And that made all the difference. In the end, humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or its military might. It was something far simpler and far more powerful. The wisdom to know that true strength lies not in dominance, but in the courage to build bridges where others would build walls. To choose hope over fear. To see in the strange and unknown not a threat to be eliminated, but a mystery to be understood and a friend to be made. That was the legacy the Valiant carried into the stars. That was the story that would echo across generations. Not a tale of conquest, but of connection. Not a warning about the dangers of the unknown, but an invitation to embrace the magnificent complexity of a universe filled with life, intelligence, and infinite possibilities for those brave enough to reach out with open hearts and minds. The stars shone bright, and humanity, at long last, was truly home among them. The